the JKA Massey Instructors course. Now we're on to the philosophy section of the course now, and I'd like to go into the next subject. I'm going to put that one up on the board. Just put the kanjis up for it first. So this one is Ken, Zen, Ichi. So first we have Ken, then we have Zen, and then we have Ichi. Now Ken, as I've drawn it here, is the pronunciation for a fist. So just put fist there for the moment. Zen, as you probably already heard, is the Buddhist principles. So that comes from Buddhism. And Ichi is not the same as Ichi, meaning one, but in this case one and a sort of union. So normally we translate that one as union. Now, so we're going to go into a little bit about Zen today and the philosophy of Zen. As I've said, for all these philosophy lectures, I'm really talking about something that you yourselves will have to discover. So it's sort of more of a voyage of self-discovery. So that's the purpose of all these things. I'm not particularly going to try and tell you what these things are. I'm just going to give you a path, pretty much like karate do, and then hopefully you will walk the path as far as you wish to in regards to the philosophy behind karate. So just to give you that sort of forewarning. Now, we can look at two things here. I just want to put up the differences. So first of all, the original kanji for Ken was this one. And the kanji that I've just put up there is not that one. Is this one. Okay? So Ken here actually means sword. And the original kanji for Ken, Zen, Ichi was not this one, it was actually this one, Ken, Zen, Ichi. This one here means fist. Now, as Funakoshi did on many different things, including the word karate and various other words, he changed sometimes the word, even though the sound was the same. So Ken for sword is exactly the same sound as Ken for fist. When Funakoshi wanted to combine these two as a concept, Ken, Zen, Ichi, rather than using the original samurai concept of the sword and Zen are one, when he brought it more up into modern times, into the 1900s, he put Ken, Zen, Ichi meaning karate, or the fist of karate and Zen are one. So that's maybe why you'll see these two things looking differently. If you look on the internet or something and you go Ken, Zen, Ichi, you'll probably find this kanji, not this one, unless you're talking about karate in modern day, modern times, the last 100 years or so. So we're going to take a look at Zen now from its origins. Where does Zen come from? So I'll just move that one over to the side, and we'll put that at the top. And we're using this kanji as Zen. Now, first of all, it's probably necessary just to go into a brief explanation of Zen and where it came from. Many of you will already know the story that is put of Bodhidharma. And Bodhidharma was the original Buddhist monk. Nobody's totally certain where he came from, but some people say he came from a Western place such as India or maybe even Persia. Many people say he's Persian because he's usually depicted as a slightly white or Caucasian person with a long black beard. So it doesn't usually fit with the Asian picture of perhaps even Indian or Chinese but Bodhidharma is credited with taking Zen to China. Or at least, not necessarily Bodhidharma himself, but the Bodhidharma thinking of Zen Buddhism, which originated in India with, obviously, Gautama Siddhartha, and then subsequent times, much later actually, but the original thought from Bodhidharma went across to China, and the date for this is usually given as 527 AD. That's what you see in the history books. Whether that's accurate or not, I don't know. However, when he arrived in China, it was then called Chan. So the Chinese word, probably Chan or Xian is the correct pronunciation. Excuse my Chinese. So this became the forerunner of the martial arts in the Buddhist monasteries that was developed over the next 1,000 years in China. So the next thing we have is, okay, we've got this is the timeline, if you like. Maybe you can just put that up here. So the timeline runs like this. So 527, Zen Buddhism went into China. From there, Buddhism came over to Japan. Now, the first recognized school of Japanese Zen was called Rinzai. And the Rinzai school was established in 1191. So, I'm just putting our timeline here. So 1191, these are AD by the way. So the Rinzai school was developed, and over the next few hundred years the Buddhist monks built temples and various monasteries in Japan, and Zen began to spread. Of course, Rinzai is not the only form of Zen Buddhism in Japan now, but perhaps it's considered to be the former or the beginning, the founder of Zen as it goes in Japan. Now, as it propagated, as it went out into the various different prefectures, there was a lot of activity during this time for the samurai. So the samurai were still actively fighting each other, and many wars, feudal wars and various things happened during this period until 1601. So let's just put that one there. When Tokugawa, the shogun, or then shogun, or became shogun of Japan, and Japan then moved into a reign of peace, because Tokugawa asked the samurais, ordered samurais to put away their swords, stop fighting and killing each other, and go into a more peaceful era. And this peaceful era went on for a period of over 250 years until we come up to modern times, basically. Now, so then we're looking at what happened during this time. So if we go to this 1191 period, so I'm just going to just wipe that now. So in about 1601, Tokugawa became shogun. I think everybody knows the story of shogun. There's been many TV and films and various other things about shoguns, so I'm sure you're familiar with that. And during this period, because it was a peaceful period, Tokugawa looked at peaceful ideas, and one of the most obvious peaceful ideas at that time was about Rinzai Buddhism. So the idea of Zen Buddhism became very popular with the shogun. And in order to get as much information and knowledge and wisdom about it as possible, he incorporated the assistance of a very famous monk called shotokan. Now, this monk was at the time instated, or this was actually a little bit later, so 1601 Tokugawa took over, and then in around about 1632 he asked Shotokan to take over the instruction of various samurais and the Buddhist, the swordsmanship and various other skills from this time were transplanted from the Buddhist monks, and they taught the various shoguns, retainers and other people to learn principles of wisdom, what we now call the Bushido. I'll go into Bushido at another time in a different lecture, so just that's basically where the Bushido principles first started to become a part of Japanese culture. Now, bringing this forward, we've got what we're looking at then is that after Shotokan took over from, let's say, building the wisdom of the Buddhist principles, this brings us up more into what principles was he trying to portray, how was he trying to teach, using the Tokugawa shogun's idea of disseminating peace. So then we get into a little bit about what is Zen Buddhism. And in order to show that, this can't be a lecture about Zen as such, but I'm just, as I said before, just giving the basic principles, and then it's up to you if you want to follow these in any more detail. So Buddhism itself comes from Buddha. Well, let's put it just as Buddha for now, as the originator. And Buddha found, let's call it, the Four Noble Truths. So, we have a look at the Four Noble Truths. The first one is, unfortunately, that all life is suffering. So, that was the first principle. The second one is that suffering comes from desire. The third one is that if we want to cease or stop suffering, we have to stop desire. Cease desire. And the fourth one is, how do we stop desire? And that was created by the basically the Eightfold Path. So, in other words, this is the basic principle on which Buddhism was first founded, that suffering, everybody suffers for whatever reason, that their suffering is usually caused by their desires. If they want to stop suffering, they have to cease their desires, and in order to cease their desires, they have to implement some kind of practical use of wisdom in their everyday life. So this is done by what's called the Eightfold Path. So these are the Four Noble Truths. And now we'll take a look at how the Eightfold Path is split up. So we go to the Eightfold Path now. So the Eightfold Path is actually split into 3 sections. The first section is about morality. And the Eightfold Path basically speaks about how to do things right or correctly. So you can have, for example, right thinking. So that would be a concept of the Eightfold Path. So here, let's just draw a line here, and I'll put that here in red. So the first idea of the Eightfold Path for morality would be right speech. If we're doing things for consideration of other people to create a peaceful environment, then we're not going to say harmful things or things that hurt people. We try to use the speech correctly. The second part of that one would be right action. So act well towards your fellow man. Try not to create upsets or disagreements. Do things in the correct way, moral way. And the third one would be livelihood. So again, live your life, make your things. If you're a producer of something, you know, if you grow rice or something, sell it at a fair price, be honest and sincere, do the correct things. So these are the 3 actions of morality: right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So we could say, really, you could almost say that all of these things are virtues. And these things, of course, have been adopted as the virtues of Bushido as well, which we'll go into in another lecture. Now, the second one, so this is the first part of the Eightfold Path. So you can actually see that there are 1, 2, 3 here. So we go into the second section of this, and this would be mental. And let's call it mental discipline, for want of a better word. Okay, so number 2 is the second section of the Eightfold Path, splits into mental discipline. So the first thing in mental discipline would be effort. Because sometimes it takes quite some effort to discipline your mental thinking and keep you on the straight and narrow track. The second part of that would be mindfulness. And mindfulness kind of gives the idea of meditation, sitting down, contemplating and thinking about things in the correct way. And the third part there would be concentration. So obviously if you want mental discipline, you have to put a certain amount of effort in, you have to be mindful of what you're thinking, what you're doing, and you have to concentrate on the true principles coming from the first section, the morality section. So these are building now. So as you can see, we've now got another that'll be 4, 5 and 6. And these ones, this last one, we could say in a general concept that this would be meditation. That doesn't just mean meditation like sitting down and meditating, but all of these principles would come into the meditation activity. And the last section here, number 3, would be more about intuitive. So we could say more intuitive wisdom. And for this one, so this coming again, all of these are right the thinking of doing these things right. So right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. The next one for this one would be right views. So we would have to have how we view life from an intuitive or wisdom point of view, rather than how we view life just as everyday hassle and how we're getting on in the general traffic. And the second part of that one would be intentions. So, what is your intention towards another person? If you have a good intention, things are obviously going to be peaceful and go well. This is the general idea of the whole Buddhistic principle. If you have a bad intention, or a nasty intention towards somebody else, or destructive action, or you still want to kill someone by chopping their head off, then you're not particularly following this code, this principle of thinking. So we could say there that the idea of that one is to, let's just put that one at 7 and 8. The idea of that one is to remove any harmful thoughts and zero, like make a zero for your mind. This concept we also have in karate is called mushin. And again, I'll go into that as a separate lecture at some point, next lecture. But for now, let's just say that mushin means to empty the mind and have no, let's say, nasty purposes, but you're just clean and pure. That's as pure as you can get. So we've now got the splits. The 3 splits are morality, mental discipline, and intuitive wisdom. And the actions, or the ways in which you would conduct yourself, is the 8-fold path here: right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, right views, and right intentions. Now, all of these things come from the Buddhistic principles, as we said here, and obviously they were concentrated on and brought into the awareness of everybody's through the Tokugawa shogunate, who was telling us to do these things correctly. So all these principles are known under one concept. We have fudodachi in karate, and fudodachi means immovable stance. And for the principle of Zen, we have, instead of fudodachi, we have fudo chishin. Chishin means immovable wisdom. So those things that I just put up on the board, the 4 Noble Truths and the 8-fold Path, are the immovable backbone wisdom that constitute Buddhism. There's a lot more about Buddhism, but as I said, this is only just to give you an idea of where the path is going. Now, we can sometimes look at this. Actually, there is a person, as I said, called Soho Takuan, and he was the original person that brought this. He was a martial artist. He taught martial artists, and he brought this principle of the immovable wisdom into the common everyday purpose after 1601. And we often see in Japan, you'll see what's known as a daruma doll. And a daruma doll is a sort of little thing that looks like this, and when you knock it down, it always comes back up. And these particular dolls were originated by the Soho Takun Linzai sect in Takasaki, which is a town in Gunma Prefecture. This one might be familiar to you. You might have heard this recently, because Takasaki, by strange connection, is where the next Gichin Funakoshi Cup will be held in 2021. So, just a coincidence or not, I don't know. Maybe they chose it for that reason. Now, the idea of this is this principle. And it's a very famous phrase, called a kotowaza in Japanese, and it says, nana korobi and ya oki. So, a bit like the little, let's just use this maybe as an idea. This is the doll. When you knock the doll down, it comes back up again. This is a daruma doll. You see them everywhere in Japan. So the idea is you knock something down 7 times, it'll get up 8 times. So it's a very persistent or resilient thing. So this is just one of the overthrows that come from the principles of Zen Buddhism that interrelates throughout the whole of Japanese society.